The lab is quiet. It's 1997, and a neuroscientist named Jaak Panksepp is watching a rat. Not studying it, exactly. Watching it. The rat is young, healthy, well-fed. No stress, no threat, no experiment running. And yet it keeps returning to the corner of its enclosure, nudging a small object with its nose, bouncing back, nudging it again. Panksepp has seen this before, but tonight he's attached an ultrasonic microphone to the cage, a device that can pick up sounds far above the range of human hearing. What he hears stops him cold. The rat is laughing, not metaphorically, not in any vague, poetic sense. The animal is emitting rhythmic, high-frequency chirps, 50 kilohertz bursts, that correlate precisely with the moments of play. When Panksepp tickles the rat, the chirping intensifies. When he stops, the rat follows his hand, pushing its nose against his fingers, asking for more. That moment didn't just change Jaak Panksepp's career. It cracked open one of the oldest assumptions in biology. We have spent centuries drawing a line between human emotion and animal behavior. Pleasure, joy, play. These, we told ourselves, were the privileges of complex minds. Animals acted, humans felt. The line seemed obvious, logical, even necessary. But what if the line was never real? What if joy isn't something that evolved in us, but something we inherited? To understand why that question matters, you have to understand what science believed about animal behavior for most of the 20th century. Behaviorism, the dominant framework for decades, had a clean, efficient answer for everything an animal did: survival. Every behavior was a calculation. Every action served feeding, fleeing, or reproduction. There was no room for play that wasn't training. No room for pleasure that wasn't a reward for something useful. It was a tidy theory, and it explained a lot. But it couldn't explain the rats. Panksepp had spent years mapping what he called the play system, a dedicated neural circuit in the mammalian brain that activates specifically during rough-and-tumble play. Not during eating, not during mating, during play. The circuit was ancient, buried deep in the subcortical brain, the part that predates the neocortex, the part that predates, in evolutionary terms, almost everything we associate with higher thought. This is where it gets strange. If play were just practice, just a rehearsal for adult skills, you'd expect the circuit to shut down the moment the skills were learned. But it doesn't. Rats that are fully adult, fully capable, still play, still chirp, still chase each other with what looks unmistakably like enthusiasm. Panksepp called the chirping rat laughter. The scientific establishment was not amused. The label was seen as anthropomorphism, the cardinal sin of animal behavior research, the projection of human qualities onto creatures that couldn't possibly possess them. But Panksepp had data, and the data was difficult to dismiss. Now think about something for a second. When you laugh, really laugh, not the polite kind, but the helpless, uncontrolled kind, you're not doing it because it's useful. You're not calculating survival odds. You're not optimizing anything. You're just overwhelmed by something that feels good. What if that feeling isn't uniquely yours? What if it's so old that a rat feels a version of it too? Drop that thought in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you think before we go further. Across an ocean and several decades later, a researcher named Samadhi Galpayaj at Queen Mary University of London was watching bees. This was not a straightforward experiment. Bees are not known for their leisure activities. They are, in popular imagination, the ultimate workers, single-minded, efficient, running on pure instinct toward flowers and back to the hive. no one expected bees to play. Galpayage and her team placed small wooden balls in an arena connected to a beehive. The balls served no function. They weren't near food. They didn't smell like anything interesting. They were just objects, and the bees rolled them, repeatedly, spontaneously. When the same individuals returned to the same balls on multiple days, young bees played more than older bees. And here's the detail that made the paper stop people mid-read. The bees that played more showed elevated levels of dopamine, the same neurochemical that drives reward and pleasure in vertebrate brains, including ours. Let me sit with that for a moment, because I think we don't let ourselves absorb how strange it is. A bee, an animal with fewer than 1 million neurons, a brain the size of a sesame seed, a nervous system we have always treated as the baseline example of pure automaticity. This animal was doing something with no survival value, returning to do it again, and experiencing a chemical signal that in our own brains we associate with pleasure. The study was published in Animal Cognition in 2022. It wasn't a fringe result. It was peer-reviewed, methodologically careful, and immediately controversial for exactly the right reasons. Here's what the science is now beginning to argue. Play isn't a luxury. It isn't the accidental byproduct of a big brain with spare capacity. It is, according to researchers like Gordon Burghardt at the University of Tennessee, a biological system, one that evolved because it confers real advantages: neurological development, social bonding, behavioral flexibility, the ability to practice responses to situations that haven't happened yet. But, and this is the part I find most compelling, that functional explanation doesn't fully account for the pleasure. It explains why play exists. It doesn't explain why it feels good. Panksepp's work suggested something deeper. And the play circuit isn't just active during play, it's motivating play. The animal isn't just moving, it's seeking. The movement is driven by something that functions like desire, something that functions like wanting. And this is where the evolutionary picture becomes genuinely remarkable. That circuit, the play system, is present in every mammal we've examined. Rats, dogs, primates, humans. It's not a recent addition to the brain. It's ancient. It predates language. It predates culture. It predates, arguably, the capacity for abstract thought. If something that produces joy exists that deep in the architecture of animal minds, the implication is almost impossible to avoid. Joy came first. We didn't invent it. We didn't develop it. We inherited it from animals who inherited it from something older still. The laughter in the rat, and the ball rolling in the bee, the rough and tumble on the savannah. These aren't imitations of human joy. They may be the original. If you're still watching, this is the kind of thinking we go deeper on with every video. Subscribe so you don't miss where this leads next. Back in that quiet lab in 1997, Jaak Panksepp reached his hand toward the rat's enclosure one more time. The animal pressed its nose against his fingers. The ultrasonic microphone picked up the chirping, steady, rhythmic, unmistakable. He would spend the rest of his career arguing that this sound was real, that what it represented was real, that the line we'd drawn between human emotion and animal experience was a convenience, not a truth. He died in 2017, largely vindicated. The field had moved toward him. The rats were always laughing, we just couldn't hear them. And the bees were always playing, we just weren't watching. Which leaves one question that I think is worth sitting with. And I'd genuinely love to read your answer in the comments. If joy is this old, if it exists in creatures this different from us, what does that change about how you think we should treat the animals in our lives, in our farms, in our labs? Nature is far more brilliant than we imagine. See you on our next exploration